Welcome back again to Last Week I Watched. I'm Mark and I watch and review movies and TV shows and then provide my input on whether or not they're worth your time. So, last week I watched ICU, Army of the Dead, What About Bob, Parker, Death in Paradise Season 10, and Unforgotten Season 4. So let's talk about them. First up is ICU, aka Detox. It's a movie from 2002 starring Sylvester Stallone, Charles S. Dutton, and Polly Walker. It was showing on Netflix. So this is about FBI agent Jake Malloy, played by Stallone. He can't catch a serial killer who's been targeting cops. And when the killer kills one of Malloy's friends and then brutally murders his fiancée, Malloy has a breakdown. He becomes an alcoholic and sort of spirals into despair. A colleague intervenes and sends Malloy to a remote detox clinic in Wyoming for help. When the killer begins murdering other patients at the facility, Malloy must then figure out who is doing it before they're all killed. So this is based on the novel Jitter Joint by Howard Swindle. The film's also been known as Detox. Honestly, don't understand why this film gets beaten so hard with a stick. It's actually a pretty good thriller. Stallone does a great job as a very broken Malloy, and he's surrounded by other great actors in the cast, and it's set in a really interesting setting for this kind of film. The clinic, it's a repurposed abandoned military silo, so it's all concrete, it's functionally very menacing, and it's located in the wilds during winter, so it's all snow and pine trees. Stallone really plays against type here. He's not the heroic action hero, but he's much more grounded and broken after the death of his fiancée, and you really feel this pain. And I think that Stallone has more range than he perhaps gets credit for at times. As he joins the other law enforcement patients at the facility, it's almost like an Agatha Christie mystery as they start to die and you try to figure out who CD, the serial killer, is. Interestingly, during the movie, CD has his voice distorted to disguise his identity, but when the trailer came out originally, they didn't distort it, so it pretty much gave the film away. As usual though, the film throws out a number of misdirections in the other patients to try to throw you off the trail, before Malloy must face the killer and deal with him in a pretty brutal way. Apparently though, the film didn't test well with test audience initially, so the studio gave up on it and have subsequently disowned it. The film was shelved for quite some time while reshoots and story changes were made, and I'd be kind of curious to know exactly what they changed and how much they changed. But unfortunately, by the point that they fixed it, it had a stink attached to it and the studio basically just dumped it. It actually didn't see release until 3 years later, and I really feel it's undeserved. Perhaps at the time when Stallone was at the height of his action hero game, it was too difficult for audiences to see him play something different. But he's since gone on to do some really great character performances in other films, so perhaps given time it would have been more appreciated. At any rate, I think you should give it a go and check it out, and make up your own mind about it. Okay, next up is Army of the Dead. It's from 2021, starring Dave Bautista, Ella Purnell, and Ana de la Reguera. Apologies if I mangled your name. It was showing on Netflix. So after a zombie outbreak in Las Vegas, a group of mercenaries, they take the ultimate gamble, infiltrating the quarantine zone to pull off the greatest heist ever attempted. This is a Zack Snyder movie. His previous zombie movie, Dawn of the Dead, is really good, and it set a high bar for the genre, so I was quite interested in this latest zombie epic. This time mayhem starts with an escaped alpha zombie being transported by the military from Area 51, arriving in Las Vegas and then infecting the population. The opening credit sequence is really clever. It shows Las Vegas falling to the zombie onslaught and then sort of introduces the main characters as they escape from the horde. It's all reminiscent of the beginning of Watchmen, with the back history of the heroes explained over the times that are changing, but this time set to Viva Las Vegas. It's quite gory and gets the movie off to a great start. Unfortunately, it then slams on the brakes to establish the characters as Dave Bautista is approached to put together a crew to break into the quarantine zone around Las Vegas and retrieve $200 million from the vault beneath the casino before the US government drops a nuclear bomb on Las Vegas. Of course, the usual American solution to everything, bomb it into the ground. I'm sorry, but no amount of money would convince me to risk life and limb to go up against hundreds of zombies, but no doubt greed would motivate some people. Also, the plan isn't that well thought out. 200 million is a substantial amount of cash and it takes up a lot of space, and I was really wondering how the heck they were going to move that much money. As expected, things don't go to plan, and the people in the group are often worse than the zombies in that their own petty motivations sort of derail the plan. But once things go wrong, the action kicks into high gear. Sure, people make stupid choices, but I'm not sure that anyone would behave all that smart if they found themselves in the same situation. The effects are pretty good, and Snyder doesn't shy away from the blood and the gore. So this isn't a movie for the kiddies, really. It's all good fun for the adults, though. My only criticism is it is quite a long movie, and I think it possibly could have done with some tighter editing. And as for the length of the film, it doesn't spend very long establishing many of their characters, so you don't feel particularly attached when they're eaten. Some of the scenes quite noticeably use the same street set, and could have benefited from moving the debris around a bit to make it look less noticeable. But it definitely has some good ideas in it. The zombie tiger was something I hadn't seen before, and the alpha zombies are a lot scarier given that they're not stupid and they move a hell of a lot faster than the usual shambling variety. I'd be happy to see another. They are hinting at a sequel, I think, with Day of the Dead in Mexico, and I'd be up for that. If you're into the genre, give it a look and make up your own mind. Some reviewers have been pretty harsh on it, but I had a good time with it, and sometimes that's enough. Okay, next up is What About Bob? It's from 1991, starring Bill Murray, Richard Dreyfuss, Julie Hagerty. It was showing on Apple. So Bob, played by Murray, he's a psychiatric patient with multiple phobias, and he's basically palmed off by his existing doctor, who's had a guts full of him onto a new therapist, Dr. Leah Marvin, played by Dreyfuss. When his doctor goes on holiday, he basically plots and schemes and finds out where the doctor is, and then proceeds to stalk him, I guess. He sort of tries to work through his issues using Marvin's book Baby Steps. Bob ingratiates himself with Marvin's family and drives Dr. Marvin to a breakdown. While Bob works through his multiple phobias with charm, Dr. Marvin increasingly rails against his lack of control over Bob and his attempts to stage manage his family for an interview about his book. Interestingly, while Bob is the patient, Dr. Marvin also probably needs some help desperately. He's very self-absorbed and self-important, and it's having a very negative effect on his family. The son in particular is suffering from Marvin's overbearing nature, and there are some nice scenes with Bob and Siggy where they help each other with their phobias. Frank Oz admits that there was a lot of tension on the set for this film. Murray can be difficult apparently, and frequently clashed with Dreyfuss. Apparently things got so bad the studio had to provide bodyguards to keep the two apart when not working. No doubt it helped Dreyfuss's performance, since he really seems to lose his shit with Murray's hijinks. Dreyfuss alleges that Murray was drunk a lot of the time, not that you can tell from his performance, but there are enough stories that it seems like it was a bit of a problem. I guess genius and madness go hand in hand sometimes. Overall, it's a funny family comedy. It doesn't take itself too seriously, and I recommend checking it out if you're looking for a feel-good funny to share with the family. Okay, next up is Parker. It's from 2013, starring Jason Statham, Jennifer Lopez and Michael Chiklis. It's showing on Netflix. So after Parker, played by Statham, is double-crossed and left for dead by his crew on a heist, he assumes a new identity, and with some inside help from a realtor, played by Lopez, aims to take down the crew's latest heist. The film is adapted from Flashfire. It's the 19th Parker novel written by Richard Stark, the pseudonym of Donald Westlake, who was a prolific writer of crime fiction. The character has been adapted in various other films also, including one I think with Mel Gibson. Statham does a good job as Parker. It's similar to some of the other crime films he's done, so it's not a huge stretch. But he's very slick, he's competent, and when he gets double-crossed, he very calmly starts planning to even the score. He's very much the gentleman thief operating with a code and that he doesn't kill anyone. Lopez does a good job as the real estate agent that gets roped into his con. The film largely follows the plot of the book, except the original heist was a bank rather than a fairground, so I'm not sure why that change was made, since Parker doesn't usually target small jobs. His work is all high-end in the books, but at least it sticks to the jewel heist in Florida. It's more of a crime thriller than an action film though, and there's less of Statham's sort of kung fu action, and there is a bit of action towards the end though when the heist goes sort of sideways. Overall, it's one of the better Parker adaptations, and it's worth a look if you enjoy the genre or Statham films. Check it out. Okay, next up is Death in Paradise Season 10. It's from 2020. So murder continues on the island of Sainte Marie, and at some point you've got to wonder why anyone would keep visiting Paradise when people keep turning up dead there. This season features the usual assortment of creative murders to solve, with some returning characters from previous seasons and a new trainee that creates chaos. But the premise is really starting to wear a bit thin for me, and I feel like I've seen the bumbling neurotic detective thing done a bunch of times across multiple seasons, and it's time to shake things up. The show has had a number of detectives assigned to the island, and they all seem to have some kind of chronic defect. Like, how many defective detectives does the London Met have on staff? The latest one's a hypochondriac, and he seems to have problems with just about anything that Paradise has to offer. He basically just whinges, moans and complains, and is generally difficult most of the time, which doesn't make him very likable. But it's all starting to feel like it's been done before. The show is becoming increasingly formulaic. It has been for some time, unfortunately, and it follows largely the same structure each week, with the Hercule Poirot style unveiling of the killer or killers, followed by a celebratory drink at Catherine's bar. Also, the island started off looking kind of shabby, and now it's high-end houses with pools and scenes that feel like they're filmed in a city somewhere. It feels like they've sort of outgrown their setting too. It's sort of not that quaint sort of island life thing so much. It's still reasonably good for the mysteries though, but it does need to desperately make some changes to shake things up a bit. Otherwise, I think they perhaps need to wrap the show up. Even though the show is still massively popular in the UK, I do hope they shake it up a bit for the next season. I'm personally becoming weary of it. But if you enjoy a casual detective mystery show and you haven't seen it before, check this out. It's pretty easygoing, and there's some nice scenery to look at, and you know, you can just put it on and just veg out in front of it. Okay, finally is Unforgotten, sorry, not Unforgiven. Season 4 is played by starring Nicola Walker as Sanjeev Bhaskar. It's from 2015. So this season sees the detectives investigating the finding of a headless and handless body in a fridge. The body's been frozen for 30 years and then dumped. When the investigation turns up a connection to 5 police trainees, the case takes a more sinister turn. This is another excellent British police procedural series with a great cast. Unforgotten follows DCI Cassie Stewart, played by Walker, and her team that investigate cold cases, the cases that haven't been solved and are largely forgotten about. There's also an ongoing thread with Cassie's struggle to cope with the job and all the murders, and things reach a resolution this season. Each season is 6 episodes, which gives the story a bit of space to breathe and unfold, and features different casts per season alongside the regulars. There are often some really good actors in the series as well. The murders are often complicated and take a bit of unraveling, but the stories are really interesting, and it's a good solid drama. Cast also have their own stories, and nobody is safe, so it doesn't become formulaic. Even main cast members can meet with an unfortunate ending. It's a very good show, and worth checking out if you like police dramas. Check it out before season 5 appears, which was announced in 2022. It's definitely worth a watch. Okay, so those are my suggestions for this week. I hope some of those are of interest to you. As always, if you found this helpful, click on the like and subscribe. Feel free to leave any comments below or suggestions for things to watch. I'd appreciate that. And somewhere on screen is my Twitter link. I tweet what I'm watching and tweet about things that I'm watching. So if you want to come on there and tweet at me, feel free. As always, enjoy some film and TV, and I'll see you next week. Thanks for watching. Bye now.